Man enters stranger's truck, sees ID, and recognizes father. But before we start, please make sure to subscribe to Did You Know and hit the bell so you never miss an upload from us. Also, leave a like right now. He lay awake staring at the ceiling for what seemed like hours before finally throwing the blankets off of him. He couldn't sleep with all the memories running unabated through his head. It was 1 a.m., cold, windy, and the threatening clouds had just begun to release their first fat drops of rain. It was his usual routine, checking up on the family properties, but tonight was slightly different. On a whim, he decided to take his late father's GMC pickup truck to check the vacant lots and rental properties all around Brownsville, Olomito, and Rancho Viejo. Flipping down the visor, he retrieved the laminated photograph of his father embedded onto one of the many laminated prayer cards given to him by the funeral home. As I started up his pickup, I said, "Hi, Dad. I'm taking your truck out for a drive tonight. I really miss you." I just love my dad's truck. When I get in it, it smells like him. It feels like him, and all of his old tools and some of his personal items are still kept there just like he left them. As J.H. Cavazos drove around town in his dad's pickup, he saw something that made him sigh in resignation. He pulled up to the vacant property, one of many owned by his family, and looked at a pile of trash that somebody had decided to dump there. He crouched down and began to pick it up when a movement at the side of the property caught his eye. It cast a shadow of a man slowly approaching him. A man wearing dirty, wet, ragged clothes was slowly walking down the sidewalk across the street. It was very dark standing in the light rain. The only sound he could hear was the howling of the never-ceasing wind. He didn't notice that the man was now crossing the street and walking towards him. He just kept on cleaning up the pile of trash, throwing handfuls into the back of the pickup. The man was shadowed by the night, but he stopped a fair distance away and called out to Cavazos, asking if he could approach, and did he need a hand with picking up the trash. Cavazos held a torch up to get a better look at the stranger approaching him. His face was hidden beneath a very heavy beard, and he continued to get closer even though Cavazos said he was nearly done. The man tried to assure Cavazos that he was just wanting to help, calling out in Spanish, "Sorry, I don't need or want anything from you, sir. I just want to help you." Curious, Cavazos thanked him for his help and, assuming that the man was harmless, began chatting. The man was, in fact, homeless and had been sleeping outside a church most nights. They worked together, throwing heaps of trash onto the bed of the truck when the man reached into one of his filthy pockets and pulled out a small baggie. Cavazos couldn't see what it was in the near darkness of early morning. The vagrant held the plastic baggie out to him and offered him something that was inside. A few stale, crumbling cookies and a string of rosary prayer beads was all that it contained. The men worked for another 5 minutes until every piece of rubbish was in the back of the pickup. Thanking him for his help, Cavazos got in his car and watched the man walk away. It was only then that he realized what had happened. "I realized that I had not so much as bothered to ask him if he was thirsty or hungry," Cavazos remembers, so he pulled the car over beside the man and told him to get in. It was time to go and get some food. Oscar, the homeless man, looked like he was practically starving, but Cavazos was floored when he went around the pickup and jumped in the back. What was the man doing? Cavazos jumped out of the driver's seat. The laminated photograph of his dad slipped out of the car, torn away by a gust of wind. It blew straight into a puddle in the gutter, but he didn't even see it. So intent was he to tell Oscar that he couldn't sit in the bed of the truck. What happened next would be the turning point in both men's lives. Oscar took off running down the street before Cavazos could even get to him. It gave him a jolt of uncertainty, watching the other man move so quickly and so suddenly, only to stop a few feet away. The man stooped down and fished around in the puddle, bringing what Cavazos immediately recognized as the picture of his father, and then something unexpected happened. Oscar's shoulders slumped, and he started shaking silently as he wept. What had just happened? Cavazos couldn't even imagine until the man said in a shaky voice, "Sir, I know this man. This man in this picture, your father. I've met both your mother and father." As if to confirm it, he added, "Aren't they the ones that own a pharmacy and clinic with a doctor?" It seemed impossible that his father could bring this stranger to tears at the news of his passing. Cavazos affirms that he's correct. For over 25 years, my parents owned Price Village Pharmacy on Price Road. He tells Oscar then and asks a question of his own. How do you know my parents? A simple, straight-to-the-point question which led to a heartfelt story from nearly 10 years ago. Oscar had just met J.H., Johnny Sr., when he had come to the country, desperate for work so that he could afford medicine for his baby girl. She was born in Mexico, extremely ill, and not only did he not have any money for the medicine, but it was also not available in Mexico. I didn't realize he had passed away. Your parents are such good people. Incredibly, Oscar had desperately swum across the river to find work and to find this much-needed medicine for his little girl. He continued, "Sir, your mother and father both gave my wife and I the medication we so desperately needed for my sick baby girl. We never forgot their extraordinary kindness and generosity. My wife and I always talked about how we were going to repay them somehow, someday. And I cry because I now realize I can no longer repay him because your father has passed away." Cavazos stood in stunned silence before trying to put the man's mind at ease. If my father were still alive, he would not accept any payment for what he gave you. My father and mother both are of the belief that when you truly, truly give, you're not expected to get anything in return. The two men made their way back to the car, Cavazos insisting that Oscar get in beside him, and they went to get something to eat. They drove to the nearest Whataburger drive-thru when Cavazos asked him what he would like to order. Oscar once again dumbfounded him. "I can't order much because this is all I have," he replied, holding the contents of his pocket in his hand. It showed 16 cents and a second set of rosary beads. Cavazos told him, "As far as I'm concerned, you've already paid. Tonight you help me pick up someone else's trash off of my father and mother's property." Cavazos smiled and stuck his head out the window. "A giant double meat, double cheese, all the way what-a-size mega combo with extra everything on it, and an extra large Coke," he ordered. He paid the bill, and Oscar could barely contain himself. He politely and excitedly asked if he could please start eating in the truck before getting dropped off because he was very, very hungry. What could Cavazos say other than, "Of course, yes"? As hungry and anxious as he was to start eating, Oscar still took time with the unopened package of food to raise it up with both hands, almost touching the truck's visor. He then closed his eyes and began to give thanks for the food he was about to eat.